Okay. So item 1 is the minute of the previous meeting. So pages 1 to 4. Do you have any questions or comments with regards to the minutes of the previous meeting? So I'll take that as an accurate account. Agreed. Okay. Welcome, Christine. So we're just agreeing the minutes of the previous meeting, so we've not missed anything. And going on to item 2, if you turn to page 5 of your agenda, you will see in the update report in 1.3 that we've got 3 applications. One is FR 1126, the Mountain Ash Club. The award was 1,750. A request for quotes for boiler were not received. Similarly, Old Hall Scout Group, the award was 1,182. So subsequently, there's a total of 4,114 that returns to Paisley East budget. Now, sure, it said to me when these papers were printed that carrying it forward wasn't an option, that the money had to be spent. But I've since been told, Stuart, by about 3 other conveners of the local partnerships that they can be carried forward if it's committed. So we've got a couple of options here. We can look at distributing it the way we presented it in the paper, which would be to the groups that already meet a priority that are within our area. But be mindful of the fact we're only 3 months away from the next grant application, and most of these things will already have taken part. Or do we want to commit it going forward, to maybe with regards to our priorities, maybe with, maybe children that require assistance or elderly people. And then when I was thinking about that, I thought about Roar. It came to my mind with the fact that the Ralston Tea Group, the lunch group, is under threat with funding. They've had so much of their funding cut. So then I say to myself, I'll leave it to the partnership to decide, but that would be our options. We could actually look at ring fencing it, committing it to a certain project, or we could look at distributing to the groups that have already been awarded from last year. So I'll open it up for opinions. What do we think? Graham, what do you think?
So, yeah, I would like, I can't remember how much Roar, so I need to check. Just hold on a sec, I'll have a look while I'm doing this. But I know that Roar were taking out their services from Ralston because of the cut from the IJB, so it'd be quite good to support them if that's possible.
Well, that's what I was thinking. They've had a 20% reduction in their funding, but as Cassie will be able to tell you, it's probably more in real terms 40% because they've not had an increase since 2016. So they are really struggling. And so it was just something I thought. I thought to myself at the time when I thought the money couldn't be carried forward, I thought, right, well, we'll have to distribute it because we can't lose it. But then after my group meeting on Monday, 3 other conveners said, no, it can't be carried forward. It just has to be committed. I see Stuart's hand up. Stuart.
Yeah, just to see if it's committed to some specific. I just want to point out, I think there's also a mistake in terms of the figure that we've got available. So I don't think it's 4,114. It should be 2,932. So it's actually a bit lower than is presented in the papers there.
So how's that, Stuart? Did you end up allocating more money? Did the people put their paperwork in? So I don't understand how that's happened because we've had a pre-agenda and then we've had a meeting since the pre-agenda. So when did this happen?
Yeah, I think this was obviously after the pre-agenda, so we didn't have this information at the pre-agenda. I think it's probably just an adding up error in terms of that. So my apologies for that.
So what has actually been paid out then? So out of the list you gave us, what is accurate regarding the 3 projects that you listed, saying that they hadn't given us the paperwork? Or are you saying is actually adding up the total of the grant awards elsewhere?
There's only 2, not 3. I wonder if one's been taken off, because the 2 there add up to about £3,000, just under 3,000. So I wonder if there's a third one which has come off here, which has done that, because you said there were 3, but there's only 2 on here that I can see. Am I missing something?
There's only 2 there, you're right.
So I wonder if one's been taken off and the previous balance went up to 4,000, but now you've only got 2, it's at 3,000.
Yeah, there was another project which was celebrating Renfrewshire, so that doesn't come back to our pot.
Right.
So
So what do we
apologies for
have then, Sure? What is the figure that we have?
that. 2932.
Yeah, just under 3,000.
2932. Okay. So, Councillor McNaughton, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I was just going to raise that issue when you added up the two figures. So it's so it's 2932. I don't have a particular view. I mean, I think that if there are good projects that could use it, then my preference would be to allocate it at this stage rather than carrying it forward.
I just wonder how useful it will be so late in the year, is my concern, because the new grant awards is in the next board meeting, you know. So I just say to myself, but let's open up, right? Chris, I see your hands up.
I'm happy to spend it now rather than carry it forward. And I think you could give it to any of these ones here. But I think one thing is Raw would certainly be able to spend it within a week, let alone the 3 months before the end of the year or whatever. So I think they're well set up and a large organisation. So I'm sure they could happily accept 3,000 quid.
Right. And do we have any more opinions here? What about yourself, Eddie? What are you thinking?
I was just wondering if I've got any reason why. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you
I
fine.
was just wondering why, if the other two, Mountain Ash, which is obviously up in Charleston, and the Scout group, because they're usually. I'm not against giving the money out. I'm quite happy to give the money out. It's pointless sitting in the bank doing nothing. It's just strange that they've not come forward for their money.
I know. I was saying to Stuart, I'll need to keep a closer eye on the budget monitoring report, so that, you know, halfway through the year, if we don't have the relevant paperwork and things like that, then we need to be flagging that up, so we're not left in a situation with one meeting prior to the next grant awards and we're in a situation where we're having to redistribute money so late in the year. Let me bring in Cassie. Cassie, would it make a difference to you, or are you already winding that group up, or is it too late? Is the ship sailed? So
it certainly would make some difference. We're obviously trying to fill the gaps at the moment, so would appreciate any money, and it would keep it going for a couple more months until we could see if we can get some more money in.
Additional funding. But I would certainly be minded to support that. So can I have a seconder for that?
You can. That's
right,
me.
Graham. Okay, that's great then. So, and everybody else is quite on board with it as well. Hey, there's nobody that's opposed to it. Right.
Thank you very much.
Right, I feel good about that. That's great. So, so the recommendations is the update report be noted and the reallocation of the funding is outlined 1.4 be approved. Okay, so that's all agreed. On the next page, page 7, sorry, so that's just giving you a breakdown of the timeline with regarding to the grant process. So
can I just stop you, Councillor Adam, just for clarity? Just, you know, what we're saying here is that the recommendations in that report, they weren't actually agreed. What we're saying, just give me a second just to get it up in front of me. Can't get there. So what I'm saying is, it's saying that the update report was noted, and the reallocation of the funding was given to ROAR to address the cuts that have been made by the IJB, not the project outlined in section 1.4.
Not in the you're right.
Okay.
Sorry, Robert, because obviously 1.4 is distributing amongst that. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you very much.
Just right, brilliant. Thanks, Robert, for keeping us right. So as I say, page 7 is just a timeline. The grant applications are already open. They close on the 13th of March, and we'll be distributing it on the 7th of May. And then if you turn your page over, it just gives you the breakdown of the actual budget monitoring report with what was the ask was, what was given, what was awarded, and what was been paid, and what's still to be paid. And then your appendix on page 11 is the local priorities that we agreed. And the breakdown on page 10 is your Celebrating Renfrewshire Fund. And that takes us on to item 3. So item 3 is the paper outlines the process of which Paisley Local Partnership awards the grants and options for applying the criteria for making the awards where total value of application exceeds the budget available. Now, what the recommendations is that the process and the options for the awards, awarding and the local partnership funding be noted, and that the options of applying the criteria and principle to the funding process be considered, agreed, subject to the value of the applications reviewed. So what we thought to ourselves was, we appreciate there's a lot of new members in the local partnership, and I think a lot of them joined just prior to the awards being distributed last year, and there was a bit of kind of maybe feeling like they weren't part of the process, as if we all just got on with the distributing of the grants, and they never felt like they were coming along with us. So what we thought we would do is discuss, what kind of methodology we want to do going into the next grant awards, whether we want to stick with a pro rata basis, or whether we want to look at similar. I mean, I felt the way before we had agreed that anything up to £1,000 we would reward in full, because it was unfair of them to pro rata such a small award. And then we'd break it down into whether it was within Paisley East and whether it met with their priorities. And if it did, then we would fund them as much as we could. So at the time, previously, we would do 80%. We'd try and aim for giving them 80% of the grant awards. And then that would leave us money to either redirect to any other pots of funding if we never felt it was applicable. And that was the basis we worked on. But as I say, I'm opening it up tonight for just to take other people's opinions to see if they feel as if there was a fairer way or a different way they would like to work this, whether you want to put a cap on it, that would also be a suggestion people have said, and and we're pretty good at actually weighing them in. By the time we get our the applications in, Stuart will align them to a priority. So when you get your paperwork, you'll see where they're based. I know that there's many local partnerships that don't award out with the boundary at all. We always tend to be a bit more lenient in that. So whether that's something we want to toughen up on or tighten up on, given the fact that we're always so oversubscribed. So, but as I say, I'm open to suggestions. So is MD having an opinion on going forward? Graham, I see your hands up.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there are organisations that work across Renfrewshire. If they work within the Paisley East, as well, then I think we can give an award to that organisation. But any organisation that doesn't touch our area, I think, should be excluded, because they can apply to their own local partnership. And we know that there are organisations that apply to every partnership. So it's hard then to follow that. Only officers can help us there. And I guess we're looking for the officers to use the criteria very carefully before we have, because we have such a large number of multiple grant applications, it's impossible on the night to really look at how well every application meets the criteria. So we're really dependent on the fact that we've now framed these criteria and the officers follow them.
Absolutely. I would totally agree with that. And I would also like us to keep in the fact that if we haven't had feedback, then it nil and voids them from any future application, because we still shouldn't be chasing to see the difference that is made to the area. John McNaughton, I see your hands up, and then it'll be Andy.
Yeah, thanks. I agree pretty much with Graham's approach. I think that in this partnership, we don't really have. It's an easier job than I had in the partnership that I chair, where the demands are even greater for the amount of money. But I think it's therefore best if we can use the officers, at least initially, to quite firmly relate the applications to our priorities. I think that gives us a head start, because I think taking the difficult decisions to exclude some or to refuse some, it makes it easier for us. It's difficult taking those decisions, but if they don't meet the priorities, if they're not relevant to the area, then it's better that we refuse those. And in terms of the rest, I think once we've gone through that exercise, we'll get a better picture of the demand with available resources, and the kind of approach of a small, up to £1,000 was a reasonable approach, where it meets the criteria, and thereafter pro rata, or if there are particular projects that members feel they can make a case for, then fine, I'm happy to hear that.
Okay. And yourself, Andy?
Yeah, I was just wondering if it might be useful if, when the information is being provided for us, if the officers could do something like maybe a color coding or a number rating to see how they meet the priorities. So it could be this particular one really strongly meets it, so that's a green. So we'd maybe want to fund that fully. Maybe the one's an amber that meets a little bit. We maybe do a 60 or 80%, and one is a red. So if we've got a lot of applications, we might not want to fund that. That might be an easy way for us to see how things are going.
I like that suggestion, Andy. You can take that on board, Stuart. Do we have any other questions, any other comments? So I think we are all quite agreed on that, you know. I mean, we've always managed to get through it really quite equitably in the past, because many moons ago, when I first took over, I remember hearing about running out of money halfway through the agenda because it was done in an alphabetical order, you know, so we've come a long way since then.
Councillor Adam, I think Christine wanted in.
Oh, sorry, I don't see, right, sorry. Christine.
Thanks, Robert, thanks, Chair. No, I'd been going to agree last year when it hadn't been in that long before we were assessing the grant applications, and I wasn't quite sure what the criteria were, and I'd felt at that time that it would be good to have it very clearly stated, if for nothing else, so that I could tell anybody in the community who was applying for a grant what was really important about it. So I think the session that we had, going over the criteria again and having that clear guidance in front of us when we look at this year's applications is definitely the way to go.
Good, excellent. Right, well, if we just agree the recommendations then in item 3, and that is that the process, the options awarding the local partnership funding be noted, and that the options for applying the criteria and principle to the funding process be considered and agreed, subject to total value of applications received. So we do rely very heavily on yourself, Stuart, you know, to put them into the categories, to break them down to how they are within our priorities. And as I say, so yes, right, I'm happy with that.
So again, sorry to be a nuisance, Councillor Adam. Just when I'm doing the minute, what we're saying is you're agreeing all of these criteria. So, for instance, if an application is for activities that take place within the local partnership boundary and it meets the local priorities, you know, that'll be considered. Applications that are ineligible for local partnership funding because it's not a constituted community grant, or it doesn't have hasn't previously provided feedback, they'll be excluded straight away. Applicants that only partially meet that they wouldn't get any money. You know, if they come for the application is for activities, so all of the things in 4.2.
If they partially meet it and they're within our area, there could be a bit of flexibility here. Let me read 4.2. Applications that are grouped to presentation number tables. Applications for activities taking place in the local partnership boundary that meets local priorities. Applications for activities taking place elsewhere in Renfrewshire but still meet the local priorities. Well, the first thing that comes to mind when you say out with our boundary is like the Paisley Pirates. They apply every year, don't they, for the help with the funding with the ice rink. So I don't have objections, because, you know, the whole of Renfrewshire will benefit for that, including people within our ward. So I'm not adverse to, you know, I wouldn't rule them out completely, but they might get a smaller percentage because they're not within our boundary kind of thing. I think a lot of that will be our discretion on the application on the night. Applications only partially meet or do not meet local priorities. Well, there would be a heading for partially meet, you know, I'd imagine there would be a category there, and it would depend on the partnership on the evening whether they want to distribute any funds to these.
Sorry, I've actually went off at a tangent, Councillor Adam. I should have been referring to paragraph 5, which gives you the criteria. So it's saying awarding applications that are under £1,000 in full. Referring applications to other so you're agreeing all of those.
Yes, referring applications to other funding streams, yes. Applying a cap. Well, are we applying a cap? The local partnership may consider setting a maximum amount of wishes, because we're one of the few local partnerships that never set a cap before. Are we minded to do that now, or are we still in agreement of just allowing them to come in? Who's that? Christine.
I I think that if we're in danger of not meeting a range of grant applications because one or two are asking for the majority of the budget, then we should have a cap set. It's hard to say, isn't it, without knowing what's going to be coming in, but we want the grant to go as far as possible across the community and to help as many organisations as possible.
I would agree. I see a few hands up now. So, right, Cassie, you're next.
There is a cap set. You can't apply for more than £5,000. That's my understanding.
Oh, right, because we never agreed that in our partnership. But there we go. I was going to suggest 5,000 because I'd noticed we didn't have anything over that. That'll be why, Cassie. Right. Hang on to see who else. Andy.
Yes, or I was just going to say that as far as I was aware, there was a cap of
5K.
of 5. So that was all.
Okay. And Chris, were you going to say the same? All righty then. Right, Eddie.
I think it's very difficult. I missed a part of it. I think it's very difficult to put 5,000 for talk's sake on it because it all depends on how much money we're going to get to spend. And I've been in this position before, and so Stuart will remember it. If you run out of money and there's a lot of people or a lot of groups waiting on money, it's not going to go down well. So I'm tempted to say that maybe we should wait to see how much money. I presume we'll have roughly the same.
We roughly have about 60, between 60 and 70,
right,
don't we? And that's why we pro rata, Eddie, so we never run out, so everybody can.
Yep, exactly. What I'm saying is that I wouldn't like to say it because obviously if you got a few in at £5,000 and they're going to get it, it just everybody else gets less and it doesn't look very good. But I'm relaxed with it. Whatever people decide, I'm happy with that.
So, sure.
Yeah, just to clarify about the cap, in terms of the guidance, the maximum amount that can be applied for is £5,000. So what we're looking at is in a situation where the value of the applications is more than the budget we've got to spend. And in the past, some of the other local partnerships have agreed like an additional cap, if you like. So instead of saying you can apply for £5,000, but in this case, if we've got a lot of applications to a far greater value, then you may want to apply an additional cap to spread the money. You might want to say, just to pluck a figure out there, you might want to say, right, okay, we'll put a cap on it at £3,000, as the maximum that you can get from here. But as was previously said, that really just depends on the value of the applications you get in against the value of the budget. So it's not something that we would want to set a figure on at the moment, but maybe something we want to bear in mind once we've got the applications in and we start kind of crunching the numbers, as it were.
Yes. So going back to page 15 with the options for the criteria, so we are agreeing all of them then. Fine percentage awards projects. Aye, so in answer to your question, Robert, in page 15, we are agreeing all that criteria. Good, okay. I think that might be the last item in this tiny agenda. Yes, it is. So the next one is the date of the next meeting, which is the grant awards, which will be the 7th of May. So we'll be having that in person then in Renfrewshire House.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll just come in. Obviously, that was just to remind people that the meeting will be in the council chamber on the 7th of May, and you will get an invite, but it won't be a Teams link. There'll be no opportunity to join by Teams. It will be an in-person meeting only. Thanks.
Okay, Chris Johnson. Oh, your mics.
Sorry, I was going to ask for it not to be in the council chambers because the way it's set up, it's not conducive to seeing other people because the way you're set up. So I was going to ask for it not to be there, but if it's there, it's there. But that's fine. You jumped in before I could say anything, Robert.
We struggle for kind of accessible buildings and things like that, and the chamber was the best one that we could afford. Since there's no charges. Andy. Is that a historic hand, Andy?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, hi. Sorry, I wonder if I could just make a couple of quick announcements, if that's all right?
Of course.
Just kind of under any other business. thanks for the funding from us all for the last session. We're holding our kind of community open day at St Mark's Church on Saturday the 22nd of March.
All right.
We have a lot of different. We've got a lot of different local organisations and groups and stuff having a stall there to kind of share all the kind of good work they do. So everyone is welcome to come along to that.
I'll come along. What time's that at?
That is, I'm just checking, it's 11 o'clock till 1 o'clock.
Okay. I will come along to that.
That's March, Saturday the 22nd. The other is from the Gaelic organisation, which I believe we funded as well.
Yes,
and they are holding a community ceilidh on Saturday the 29th of March.
Very good.
At the community centre in Ralston. They are also working with us and an after school care in Seed Hill to teach some of the kids some ceilidh dancing and some Gaelic singing as well.
Brilliant.
So that's a really fun event. So everyone is welcome to come along to that as well.
Excellent, Andy. Thanks a lot for telling us that. I'll definitely be along. That's great. And Isabel, I see your hands up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you really didn't want the council chambers, I could find out if Southend Action Centre might be available.
I think we've got to look at parking and things like that as well. I think that had been suggested to us initially, but the concern was parking, for the amount of members we've got. At least we've got the whole car park to ourselves in Renfrewshire House.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. So if that's us then, that just leaves me to thank you all for your attendance this evening, and I'll see you at the grant awards in May. Okay? Right, good night. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Good night, we'll see you soon.
Bye.
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 Good night.